Survivor Series War Games 2025 is in the books, and your boy was there. I was in Petco Park last night for Survivor Series, and I gotta say, for a stadium show, I thought it was kind of underwhelming. Granted, when you go to these things and you go to these events, you have a great time, as we did. It was a lot of fun to go. It was a lot of fun to watch the show. It was a visual spectacle, as always, as all WWE shows are. And you always have a great time when you go to this stuff. But there was 46,000 people in Petco Park last night for Survivor Series. And one of the things that I was harping on in my predictions, I was even talking about this last night with our friends and stuff, that, if this show is going to end with the heels winning, like I had predicted that it would, with Brock Lesnar's team and company winning the match, and that's also going to be in the main event. When you think about recent Survivor Series, specifically 2 years ago in Chicago when CM Punk came out to close the show, just a couple of months ago at SummerSlam when Brock Lesnar came out to close the show, here's another stadium show. It's a Big Four pay-per-view. You're going to be closing out with the heels winning. Are we going to see something crazy? Are we going to see a big return? Are we going to see a big heel turn? Could we see Chris Jericho show up? Something like that. I thought that they might just close the show with, a big surprise since the heels are winning. And one of the things that I noticed last night after the main event on the big Tron there, when they show the leaf fitting and the Triple H and the credits and all of that, people were still standing around after the pay-per-view was clearly off the air. Like, we were well past the time that WWE was going to tease us and bring somebody out, and everybody was just kind of standing there looking at each other like, was that it? Yeah, it was it. And again, I'm going to have some good things to say about this show, and I have not yet watched it on television. So I don't know how this came off on ESPN. I don't know how those of you watching it at home, how the show came off to you. The live crowd felt jacked and hyped for the whole thing. At least my section was very vocal, very into it, very engaged in every match. But that's kind of what you do when you go to wrestling shows. Sometimes you're just living in the moment. You might not realize what you're seeing is really that bad. But when you have that many people in the stadium and you give us two relatively tame War Games matches with toy set weapons, Punk got a little bit of color. He probably lobbied for that. But, everything else was just your typical toy set weapons, your kendos and your trash can lids. Io Sky, for the umpteenth year in a row, dives off the top of the cage. And as much as I love War Games, as much as I love the fact that WWE, specifically Triple H, pushed for this concept to be brought into the company and to be an annual thing on their pay-per-view, it's starting to have the same effect that the Hell in a Cell pay-per-views did. And I used to complain about the Hell in a Cell pay-per-views all the time because I thought it was silly to have a match concept like that on pay-per-view annually in a specific spot every year, because that books yourself into a corner, and then you have to just create these issues that would warrant a cage match or a cell match or whatever. And War Games is kind of the same thing. And I think when it comes to these type of specialty matches, the Elimination Chamber they use for Mania purposes now, so that kind of has a purpose. But War Games and Hell in a Cell, they dropped the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and Triple H started using his fucking head, and they started booking Hell in a Cell matches where you needed them. If you need a Hell in a Cell match at Mania, put one there. You need a Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam, put one there. Just put it wherever you need it. I would advocate for doing the same thing with War Games, where you're not forcing yourself to come up with team event matches once a year that pretty much resemble exactly what you did last year. I mean, how many years in a row has Io Sky done the trash can dive now? Last year's men's Survivor Series team looked the exact same. Who was different? Cody and Sammy? Everything else was the same, right? So there's lots of things now that you're starting to see that it's becoming repetitive with these type of matches. And then in the matches themselves, I'm not asking for anybody to get hurt. I'm not saying go out there and have AEW levels of blood or anything, but maybe you could meet in the middle a little bit to where you're not just using your typical Mattel toy set weapons, and maybe you get a little bit gnarlier, maybe a little bit more creative. And I didn't really even think either one of the War Games matches were necessarily bad. I thought the men's match was pretty good, except for maybe the ending, with the masked figure or whatever. But, the match was pretty good, despite Jey Uso restarting his entrance and humping the top of the cage or whatever he was doing up there. So the matches were okay. The women's match was okay, but nothing special. The men's match was okay, but nothing special. The Nikki and Stephanie match was completely, irrelevant. And Dom and John Cena was fun, but again, nothing like overly spectacular. When you're talking about a stadium show here, you just expect a little bit more. And it had Clash at the Castle vibes when they debuted Solo Sikoa. I kind of thought we would have like a much bigger kind of ending or some sort of. I hate to be that fan that says he needs a surprise. I need a surprise. I don't always need a surprise. I'm not 5, but it's a stadium show. I was one of the 46,000 people in there last night. You got to do more. And this company, what's becoming more and more apparent now with Triple H, several years into this gig, is he still is a lot like Vince McMahon in a lot of ways. And WWE is still operating under this, I guess, philosophy of where the spectacle and the entrances are what the fans are there to see. I'm not there to see entrances. What the fuck? Yeah, some entrances are cool. I like the music. I like watching people come out, but I like the action in the ring better. And I'm not paying all this money, and in some cases taking flights to go to these shows to watch entrances. I can do that in my own fucking house. I can do that sitting right here in this chair. So yeah, entrances are cool, but when you start living by that, and the fan, we're going to put all this time and all this effort. Triple H is going to be out there in the aisleway, going through their entrances with them. How about we go through what's going on in the fucking match instead? Entrances are entrances. Entrances can be cool, but focusing so much on that the fans are now coming to us to watch us show off our production values, our lights, our lasers, all the shit we put together. And believe you me, the venue last night was just absolutely beautiful. Petco Park is a great place to hold a wrestling show. WWE did an outstanding job of setting up this venue because it's kind of tricky with baseball stadiums, with the use of the dugouts. We saw the holding cages for the War Games matches no longer there. Maybe there was not enough room based on how, the logistics of it being set up or whatever it was. But it was still just a gorgeous setup. They had the fucking blimp overhead that was taking all the aerial shots, and it was great. But we need more than that. Okay, great. You got great entrances. You've got an unlimited production budget, obviously, with all the shit going on around us. It all looks wonderful. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. But where's the substance, the product that you're actually selling, like in the ring? They could have done more. So my experience last night at Survivor Series was a lot of fun, had a great time, but I feel like they could have done more. And you only had a 4-match card here, so I feel like more could have been done to make the show a little bit memorable or more memorable, because it really wasn't. I think I'll remember Dom and John Cena forever, but I'm going to forget who was even in either one of these War Games matches by Tuesday. It's already going to be deleted from the memory bank. I'm not going to have a fucking single memory of any of this shit in terms of who was in the matches and how it went and all that, because it's to the point now where the War Games matches are starting to feel like the Hell in the Cell matches, where you're just throwing shit together at the last minute, creating an issue between 10 men and 10 women so they can settle it in the War Games. I think maybe the War Games should be used once every 2 years, once every 18 months, once every 3 years, or whenever you find yourself in a specific creative situation where you've got a bunch of people, all kind of having multiple issues at once. That's where you do your War Games. And you stick a War Games somewhere else. The problem with that is you need 2 rings. So you can't just decide, we're going to have one War Games match at WrestleMania. Then you got to throw 2 rings out there. So it's probably going to have to stay at Survivor Series. It's probably going to be the way they're going to have to do it until they decide to maybe give it a rest. If they decide to go back to the original Survivor Series formats, or if they decide to dump the Survivor Series altogether, which I believe next year will be the 40th one. So, maybe they could give War Games a rest, perhaps. But if it's going to stay here and it's going to stay an annual tradition at Survivor Series every year, you got to do more to make these matches more special and maybe start building these a little bit earlier instead of just 5 weeks before the show. Oh shit, we got War Games coming up. Let's get all of our top heels and all our top baby faces and mash them all in there, and then just do some segments on TV to make it happen. And it's, kind of being somewhat phoned in at this point. So I think that would be my only complaint, is that maybe these War Games matches, now that it's been several years of the concept being brought back in WWE, maybe they could be, either be a little bit better or cool them off for a bit. Because I think what we saw last night was just kind of unremarkable, I suppose, is a good word for it. But like I said, I haven't seen the show yet on TV. I don't know how it came off on pay-per-view, but based on the reaction I was looking at on social media from a lot of you and some of the things you were telling me, the show was just, kind of meh. But it sure was fun, and it sure did look good. So that's what we're here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about my experience last night at WWE Survivor Series. And it was fun last night in Petco Park. Weather was perfect, by the way, for the show. It was about 65 degrees, not a damn cloud in the sky. We got to our seats. We looked up. You could see the moon, the Goodyear blimp. It was just an absolutely gorgeous day. And Petco is a great place. I hope they do. I hope there's more wrestling shows you can do at Petco Park. Baseball stadiums are tricky because you can't really do a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam in any baseball stadium because you need way too much time to set up the set. WWE's got to be in there for a couple of weeks minimum, especially for WrestleMania with some of these sets. So baseball teams are not going to be on the road long enough for WWE to come in and do a show and leave. So you can't do a Mania or a SummerSlam in a baseball stadium really ever. So your only options are Royal Rumble or Survivor Series or maybe, one of your in-between shows. And I've wanted a show at Petco Park for a long time. Now we are finally getting a big one, a Survivor Series. So it was a good spot to do the show. And the weather was good, which was nice. Now, as many of you know, last week, Elizabeth got in an accident. She fell while hiking in the mountains. She had to be airlifted out of there and to a hospital, and she basically blew her knee out. She tore everything in her knee. She tore her ACL, her MCL. It's a mess. She's going to have surgery on it, and that did not stop her. That did not stop her from going to Survivor Series last night, and she was going to make the show either way. Now, we originally kind of intended on finding a place nearby, a restaurant or bar near the stadium to kind of meet up, hang out for a few hours before the show in case anybody wanted to come over and say hi. But due to Elizabeth's injury, we really needed to limit how much time she was going to be walking around. So I decided to not drive down to the stadium, but just to reserve an Uber. So we reserved a car to and from our front door just to limit the amount of time she had to walk. And since the doors opened 2 hours before the show and Petco was so beautiful, we thought we would just go in there into the park right when the doors open and hang out. That way, if we wanted to meet up or just chill, we could do it right in the park. So unfortunately, we didn't do like as big of a meetup as I would have maybe have liked to, but circumstances made us kind of have to change our plans there. But it worked out really good. And as we were kind of getting ready for everything yesterday or the day before, and I'm sitting there looking at Elizabeth's knee brace, and I'm like, she's got a pair of jorts, and she also has an Austin 316 shirt. So we decided that we'd put a little outfit for her together, and she went as Stone Cold Steve Austin last night, complete with the knee brace and everything. She looked great. She was hobbling around a little bit, but she made it through it, and she was an absolute warrior. So walking around with no crutches on a torn ACL, a torn MCL, a chipped bone in her femur, and she doesn't even have a single drop of pain medication in her body. Ibuprofen, that's about it. So she's walking around on that leg like a boss, walking around the streets, getting in there, and she was a trooper. She was a trooper, and she had a good time. But really loved the Austin cosplay for her. It really, really worked well, and we had a good time at the show. Like I said, even though the show was slightly underwhelming, we had a good time, and that's what it's all about when you go to these things. AEW, WWE. I've been to a lot of AEW shows since they've been around, and I've had a blast at every single one. Had a great time at WrestleMania a couple of years ago. This is I've been to several Survivor Series now. I was at Survivor Series 2018 in LA a few years back. That was a lot of fun. Even went to NXT War Games that same weekend. So regardless of the show I'm going to, any show that I've been to in the last 10 years, I've really had a good time. Really have. And last night was no different. We had a blast hanging out with Zach and Chris. And Chris had a friend with him, Mayan, I believe, too, right? And got to meet our friend in the chat there, Chris Ludek, who hangs out all the time with us in the chat. He has a YouTube channel as well, and finally got a chance to meet him in person after we've talked a bunch of times over the past few years. I know I've sent him some podcasting equipment, and he's a great dude. So it was awesome to finally meet you last night, Chris, for the first time. So got to meet Chris, and as I dropped my pen, also got to hang out with Zach again, our good buddy Zach Goller, who also you'll see in the chat from time to time. They might be in here now. I have not said any hellos to chat, by the way. I'll do that in a minute. Got to meet Zach last night as well. Again, we hung out with him a little bit a couple of years ago at WrestleMania. So we had a great time last night. It was fun just kind of sitting there, talking with all the fans, talking about what's going to happen and reacting to the matches. It's just great. It's just always a fun experience whenever you go to a show live. And even though, you get a show that might be a little weak, doesn't mean you don't have a good time. Enjoyed a couple of cold ones, watching some good wrestling, hanging out with friends. It was a blast. So thank you to Zach, thank you to Chris, and thank you to Elizabeth for toughing it out and going to the show with me. It was a lot of fun. Let's start getting into this actual review of the show, because I've talked about the venue, I talked about the time we had, I talked about my feelings on the main event, what I thought they could have done better overall on the show and whatnot. We've gone through all of that, but now we have to actually review this show match by match. And we opened up with the women's War Games match. One noticeable difference this year with the War Games matches is that we had no holding cages. Now, we had seats about on the third baseline. So we were right under, as you can see here, right under the big screen there, right under the Western Metal Supply building. And from where we were seated, I couldn't see the holding cages. So I think I tweeted out, like, are they there? And y'all were like, no. And so I'm like, okay, the holding cages are gone. A lot of fans were disappointed about that because they bring up a good point. When you have the cages out there and you have all the combatants in there, you can have issues inside of there. And we've seen some great moments. I think my favorite of all time is Dakota Kai kicking Tegan Knox's head through the bars there when she turned heel. That was fucking great. So the holding cages do serve a purpose. Creatively, you can create issues inside of there, and it creates drama. So I get it. But I've never really been a fan of them. I didn't like the holding cages. I thought they were silly. And what was even crazier in the beginning days, the holding cages were just set down on the floor, and there's no floor in it, meaning you could just lift it up and slip out of there. So it's not like you're really even trapped in there. So I didn't like that, and I thought the cages were weird. And because back in the old days, I think everybody just hung around the outside of the cage and they just waited their turn to enter. So it was way more low tech back in the NWA and WCW days. So I thought maybe you could go somewhere in between, but I never really thought the cages were necessary because, like in the Rumble and stuff, you just come out one at a time. So it looks like they've ditched the cages in favor of just normal entrances coming through. And I can't remember when they were doing the cages, do they play the music or no? I don't think they play music when you are in the cages. The buzzer just goes off, the cage opens, and somebody runs down there. I don't think they play their music, but I can't remember in previous War Games. But doing it this way allows everybody to get their own special entrance. We know how WWE loves those entrances. But with the cages, one of the first thoughts I had when Brock Lesnar joined the team, I'm like, it's going to look weird with him standing in that cage with like Bronson. There's going to be so much beef in one cage. Like what if Logan Paul starts? Then you got Brock and Bronson and Breaker and Drew all squished, in that cage like that. It would just look weird. So I had a hard time wrapping my head around that even happening, but the cages were just completely done away with, and everybody had regular entrances here for the women's cage match. And this match was not that special, to be honest. It was okay, and it went about 45 minutes, but they didn't give us anything too overly spectacular in this one. It was just kind of more your same shit. We had Charlotte Flair and Asuka. They started the match. Charlotte had some sort of gear on, and which I believe was a tribute to a little girl who she hugged in the crowd. I think had a terminal illness or something like that. So that was very nice. Some of the women did have inspired gear. Nia Jax sticks out because her gear might have looked strange, but it was actually, I think, a tribute to the San Diego Padres, who wear those crazy loud colors. And a lot of fans around here don't like those uniforms. But Nia wore that very, very heel move because a lot of people around here don't love those uniforms, but I kind of like them. So the match was Charlotte and Asuka starting out. The order of the entrance after that was Io Sky out third, then Becky Lynch, then Alexa Bliss, then Kairi Sane, then AJ Lee, who you see here. Becky is trying to prevent her from getting in. AJ was out then to basically kick off her issue here with Becky Lynch, and Becky wants nothing to do with AJ there, as you can see. After AJ comes out, we get Nia Jax, who was out next. She's then followed by the final babyface member in Rhea Ripley, and the final heel to make her way to the ring is Lash Legend. So Lash Legend, who's never even had a match, I don't think, on the main roster yet, she is in a War Games main roster match, and she's out last, which was kind of interesting. So they had all the women in there now. Finally, they all get there, and the match beyond can kind of begin. And we also, of course, speaking of Io, we got the big classic Io Sky spot that she's been doing now. How many years? Help me out in the chat. How many years in a row have we gotten the Io Sky trash can spot? The first time she did it, it was great. The second time she did it was great. Hell, even the third time she did it was great. And this time I kind of like too, because I don't recall her ever doing a swanton with it. So Io Sky, you know, she's got the trash can. So as Io's making her way up to the cage, everybody in our section knows what's coming. Like, you got to give her the trash can. So I think it's like AJ Lee or whoever it was. She's really trying to like toss the trash can up to Io Sky. Finally, Io gets her hand on the trash can and she puts it over top of her head. And as you can kind of see here, and I had a hard time seeing what she was doing. I thought she was just going to go with like your typical dive. So the fact that she did a swanton off here, and even the way her legs were split, there's that image of Io diving off with her legs out like that with her head inside the trash can. I thought it looked really awesome. So even though she did it, even though it's a spot that they've done and they've repeated over and over, the crowd always pops for it. We had a great time. I thought it was tremendous. And if Io ever wants to climb up to the top of an apparatus, put some shit on her head, and then dive off, like, look at this shit, and dive off on a bunch of women, I'm not going to complain. Go ahead, do it. You know, we see it every damn time, but it's fun. And she knocked them all down like bowling pins there, so we got the typical trash can spot, and that was really probably the most exciting part of the match, because the crowd popped for that because they knew it was coming. They knew they were going to get that. It's just like you knew you were going to get Kofi Kingston trying to escape Rumble eliminations, you know, until it just kind of got old. And I would dare say maybe this is starting to get old, but Io is still pulling these things off, and Io is so incredibly lovable that I'll give this a pass. So yeah, they keep doing this over and over, but you know what? It's fun, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. In the end, though, it was Becky Lynch tapping out to the Black Widow. AJ Lee actually taps out Becky Lynch. I was thinking that it's probably going to be maybe like a Nia Jax or a Kairi Sane taking the pin on the heel side, but it's Becky. You know, Becky takes the loss. She taps out to AJ Lee, and now she has lost again. She lost the Intercontinental Championship to Maxine. Now she's gotten herself in War Games to try to get revenge on AJ Lee, but she fails. And AJ ends up tapping her out. So now you got to wonder if Becky might wind up winning the Intercontinental Championship back from Maxine, and then maybe you wind up passing it over to AJ Lee. But I also think that AJ Lee and Becky Lynch don't necessarily need a championship in this feud. There's enough there to where they can have pay-per-view matches. I don't need a belt on the line. I don't. But WWE might. They're different than me. They're different from us. So where we see a situation where the belt might not be required, WWE might feel the exact opposite and actually have the title on the line here and have AJ win the Intercontinental title, which would be fine, but I don't even know if that's necessary. But WWE with Maxine, you can tell that they're teasing a possible Natalya heel turn. So if Natalya comes back, you know, maybe Bliss or maybe Becky gets a rematch, and then Natalya says, "Don't worry, Maxine, I'll back you up. I'll be in your corner cheering you on." And then she turns on her, and then Becky wins the title back and goes to defend it against AJ Lee, while Maxine and Natalya wind up having a singles program. Maybe it's going to go somewhere like that, but since Becky now has lost a couple matches in a row, I'm expecting her to get a big win here soon, and that might be in the form of, just like Dominic, her regaining her Intercontinental Championship. So we will see where that goes, but she took the loss, and she submitted in the finish of War Games here to AJ Lee, and AJ now is back in her second match, victorious twice. So CM Punk and his wife, both involved in War Games matches and both involved in the finish. So pretty cool stuff there from them. And then next up, match number 2 of the night was really the match that I was looking forward to the most. It was John Cena defending his Intercontinental Championship against Dominic Mysterio. We all know how this was set up a couple of weeks ago in Boston on Raw. John Cena challenges Dominic Mysterio for the title. He wins it in a tremendous moment. And as soon as that happened, you could kind of tell where they were going with this. And this is something that I was pitching weeks earlier in October. I'm like, oh man, if Dom and Cena are going to work together, they should have Dom lose the Intercontinental title to Cena and win it back at Survivor Series, since Survivor Series is in his hometown. So John Cena wins the IC title in his hometown of Boston. Now we book the rematch, a stadium show, Dominic here in San Diego, against John Cena for the Intercontinental title. And as you guys know in my predictions, by the way, I did go perfect 4 for 4 in my predictions. And in my predictions, I mentioned a specific finish that I was expecting to see in this match. And that finish was Liv Morgan making her return. And I thought that there was a chance that we could see Liv Morgan either return in the Intercontinental Championship match, or we could see Brie Bella return in the Women's Championship match and help out Nikki. So I thought we could get Liv or Brie, but not both. So Liv was what I was expecting here. I thought there was a much better chance of Liv Morgan making an appearance here than Brie Bella making one in the women's match. And I think WWE knew that as well, because when Dom came out, he had Raquel and Roxanne with him. And right away we were talking like, oh, what's going to happen is they're going to get thrown out. WWE is having them come out with Dom to kind of throw you off the scent maybe of Liv Morgan, since they're out there. But they're probably going to get tossed out by the referee, and that's when Liv is going to come out. And that's kind of almost how it went. So it's Dominic versus John Cena for the Intercontinental Championship. It was great to see John Cena's second to last match. I'm proud to be there for this one. And it was cool to see his entrance and whatnot. It was just cool. It was just a cool moment to be there to watch history, because I'm never going to watch John Cena wrestle live again. Now, they try to fool you with a spot on the outside of the ring. I don't know if Dominic goes for a hurricanrana, and it looks like he gets hurt. Of course, from our seats, I can't tell if this is legit or not. I'm like, oh God, the referee is checking on Dom. After about 30 seconds, you could tell that it was probably okay, the way he was motioning for the other people or the trainers to come out and look at Dom. And we just saw Penta get hurt on Monday night. So that's fresh in the fans' mind. So I was panicking there for a minute that Dominic was really hurt. And so while he is down and the referee and the doctors are attending to Dom, Raquel and Roxanne start beating up John Cena in the ring. Raquel Rodriguez hits John Cena with a Tahana bomb, and then Roxanne hits a Pop Rocks on John Cena. Fucking Pop Rocks on John Cena. Of course, this causes them to get thrown out. They are officially thrown out of the match. Balor and JD try to run in, but Cena disposes of them, and that's when we get the return of Liv Morgan. So Liv Morgan's music hits. She comes down, and again, everything going on TV with Dominic and Roxanne, you weren't sure totally if Liv was going to be on Dominic's side, but I could see this. I could sniff this out. I'm like, she's definitely going to help Dominic win. But when she gets in the ring here, and as we see her standing there, you can tell she's going to do something to Dominic. So she winds up just slapping the shit out of Dominic, which as soon as she did that, I didn't believe it for a second. The minute she slapped him, I'm like, nope, this is all a ruse. This is Eddie Guerrero's son we're talking about. This is Eddie Guerrero's real biological son of Dominic Mysterio that's doing this. So when Liv slaps him, I didn't believe it for a second. Liv, of course, then, after slapping Dom, leaps into the arms of John Cena and gives him a big hug. And when she does that, they basically recreate the Elimination Chamber spot where she's in Cena's arms and you see her face change, just like Cena's changed at Elimination Chamber when he turned on Cody, when he was looking at The Rock. Liv then blasts John Cena right in the penis with a low blow. He falls into the ropes. In comes Dominic. Boom, hits him with the 619. And then he gets up and eats a belt shot from Liv right to the face. Dominic to the top rope. Hits the beautiful Eddie Guerrero splash, frog splash, pinning John Cena for the win and winning back his precious Intercontinental Championship. Just poetic. Loved it. Now, was it overbooked? A little, but that's okay. I didn't mind it in this case. You know, should Dom have won a little bit more legitimately? Maybe, because I have mentioned before recently that Dom is starting to win his matches more and more legitimately. I think with this one, though, the reason I was all right with it is because I appreciated WWE trying to make the Liv Morgan return less obvious, or as less obvious as possible, by having Roxanne and Raquel out there, and also having like the injury spot, and then having Liv come out and slap Dominic. But you knew you couldn't really go anywhere with that. If Liv were to really turn on Dominic here and then help John Cena win, well, what does that mean? John Cena's about to leave. And John Cena, the last thing in the world that I wanted was John Cena to lose the Intercontinental Championship to Gunther. I do not want Gunther or need Gunther to be the Intercontinental Champion, and I certainly don't want John Cena to retire as champion if he were to beat Gunther on Saturday night's main event. But I think that match in Madison Square Garden with Sheamus and Ray, that was John Cena's last victory of all time. I said he's not going to win again. So he's lost the IC title here, and that's good, because if he would have kept it, that would have really made the Gunther match disappointing. Dominic needed to win the title back here. I'm okay with how they booked it. I'm okay with the overbooking because of, the Liv Morgan effect here, where I think if she just would have came out and helped him, that might have been a little bit too simple. So I'm okay with how they did it. There's a fine line there between, Dominic requiring help in every single match he's in to get it done, and also doing what his name describes, Dirty Dominic Mysterio. He could potentially take away the dirtiest player in the game moniker from Ric Flair, because of some of these tricks and stuff. And of course, as we know, it's in his blood because of his father, Eddie Guerrero. So if he wants to win matches this way, that's kind of the typical Dom way. And I've been more pleased lately with how he's been winning matches. The one with Rusev comes to mind. He had the match with him on Raw a few weeks back. He just one dick kick and a frog splash, and he put him away. So he's not requiring the entire faction of Judgment Day to win all of his matches here. It just kind of happened to be that way this time. And it was against John Cena, the greatest of all time, in his second to last match in a stadium show with the title on the line. John Cena usually comes through. If you are in a stadium show match with a championship on the line against John Felix Anthony Cena, you know you are going to get the best John Felix Anthony Cena there is. And Dom is going to need that help. So that's kind of the way I look at it. That's how I can justify the overbooked nature of this match. It's okay with me. I had a great time watching it. I got the outcome I wanted. All I cared about was Dirty Dom and his beautiful hair and his beautiful face and his beautiful mustache to win back his Intercontinental Championship. And he did. And I got to watch John Cena's second to last match that he will ever wrestle in his life. That makes me happy. It's not his final match. I'm not going to be at Saturday night's main event, but this is literally the next best thing. And as I talked about earlier, I'm going to forget by Tuesday who was in these War Games matches, but I probably won't ever forget Dominic Mysterio beating John Cena because of how big this match is going to turn out to be for him in his career, looking back when he is going into the Hall of Fame, or when he's doing podcasts or talking about, significant moments that made him rise up to that next level. This match will be a big one, whether it was overbooked or not. It's not going to matter. This is a big win, big moment for Dom, beating John Cena in a stadium for a championship in his second to last match. That's nothing to shake a stick at. That's a big deal. And I'm really, really, really happy for Dominic that it went that way. And he is my pick to win next year's Money in the Bank. I believe Dom will be a world champion within the next 18 months. And I think next year he wins Money in the Bank. And I think if Dom did, when it comes to that briefcase, I know a lot of fans are like kind of over it and stuff, but I think Dominic would make one of the more entertaining briefcase holders because he's already dirty and shady and sketchy, and he's got that Guerrero blood running through his veins. He's going to cash that thing in an incredibly unique way, or at least that's the way I would insist that it goes. If they're going to put the Money in the Bank briefcase on him next year, he has to have a cash in like the most epic possible way. Sneaky, surprising, just make it great. I don't know how or where or against who, but just make it great if that's what you do. Dominic Mysterio is the future. Congrats to him, and thank you to John Cena. I honestly mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for a just tremendous 23 years. I always had his back, didn't I? Didn't I? Always. I'm not oblivious to the problems with John Cena creatively. I understand those issues. It's what I said for 15 years incessantly. I was like, but you got some fans that simply cannot manage their emotions. And they do not know how to separate reality from their own anger and all this stuff. And it just boiled over. And John Cena was the recipient of so much just needless hate from dumb little boys. And I was always the one speaking up, saying, no, you guys are wrong. I understand you. I understand what you're saying and I hear you. But what you don't understand is that the wrestling business is just an ever evolving thing that's never going to go away. And you're acting like this guy's going to kill the business and WWE's going to have to shut down because they keep putting over John Cena. No. No, there's no chance whatsoever of that ever happening. And so what I was saying is when you guys get older, you're all 16, 17, 18, 19, little bitchy little boys now, but when you're 30, you are going to think a different way. And they do. And John Cena got a really nice, warm send-off last night from the crowd. After Dominic left, the music turned off. Cena got a great ovation from the crowd. I put up a YouTube short just thanking him last night in the arena, and it was just nice to see him kind of get his moment there and have the farewell in a stadium that he's never wrestled in before, but it's going to be his last time in San Diego, and saying goodbye to the fans of at least San Diego in his final Survivor Series and his final pay-per-view. So I did get to see John Cena wrestle in his final pay-per-view, but he still has one more match left a couple of Saturdays from now on Saturday night's main event against what will probably be Gunther, and I'm sure that Gunther will win, and that will be a wrap on old John Cena. Unless they want him to go out on top. Unless they want him to beat Gunther. I mean, Gunther's strong enough now to where a loss wouldn't, bury him or anything. Gunther got choked out by fucking Jey Uso and CM Punk. So I think that losing to Cena wouldn't really mean anything. So couple weeks. We're going to be here, by the way. I do have December 13th off, so we will be here doing a watch-along and review of Saturday night's main event for John Cena's final match. Up next was a match that I don't even understand. You had Finn Balor, you had AJ Styles, you had Randy Orton. How many other, Aleister Black, Damian Priest, you had so much talent doing nothing on the show, and Nikki Bella gets a fucking title match on a 4-match stadium show? I did not need this match at all. I don't need this feud. I don't like Nikki Bella. I mean, I'm fine with Nikki Bella being around, but being in title matches and stadium shows, come on. The woman hasn't won a match since this summer, and now she's getting a championship match. And in my predictions, I went back and forth a little bit, didn't I? I wasn't completely sure if Stephanie was going to retain here, because Nikki is from San Diego. She's billed from Arizona now, but she lived here for a long time. So did Brie. And I did mention the possibility of twin magic, but after we saw Liv Morgan, there was no way they're going to do that in back-to-back matches, have somebody come out and help somebody win a championship. So by the time we got to this match and Liv had already made her return, I wasn't feeling too worried about Stephanie and Nikki. I thought Stephanie would retain, and she did. Now we got the Devil's Kiss tease in the ring. Nikki kind of blocked it. Nikki wound up eating the Devil's Kiss on the announce table on the outside of the ring. That's the only thing that really got the crowd into this. A lot of people headed for the bathrooms, so much so that I stayed behind. I'm like, I'm not going to the bathroom. It's going to be packed. So everybody kind of headed out to go to get concessions and whatnot during this match. They weren't very vocal for anything other than the Devil's Kiss stuff. And most everybody was definitely rooting for Stephanie Vaquer here. So it was an okay match. I think Nikki kicked out of one of Stephanie's finishers. Nikki had a couple of rack attack attempts that did not go well. And in the end, it was just Stephanie Vaquer hitting her corkscrew splash to Nikki Bella to get the win and to retain the women's championship. So we did dodge a bullet there. Luckily, there will be no new women's champion tomorrow night on Raw. Nikki Bella did lose, as she should have. This would have been a travesty if she would have won, but I mean, look at Nikki, still just looks so unbelievably great. So does Stephanie, but I don't want Nikki Bella as champion, especially when the title is around the waist of somebody as credible as Stephanie. Men's War Games match closes the show here. It was announced before the show that it would be the main event, and I was mentioning my concerns about that during the predictions, and I was saying things like, hey, if this match is going to main event and the heels win, I don't know how you're going to close the show out like that. So I was expecting some sort of a surprise, expecting some sort of major story beat here, or maybe heel turn in WWE, or we had heard reports throughout the week that WWE intends on kind of setting up whatever they're going to do for WrestleMania here in this match as well. So we had our eyes on all of that, and we've got some possible directions for WrestleMania. And I know what I'm hoping for. based on what we saw last night. So we had the two men to start this thing. Was actually CM Punk and Braun Breaker. So world champion Punk is starting this thing with Braun Breaker. Loving the Breaker and Bronson Reed, Rick Steiner jackets. They're pretty cool. And of course, since the heels won the advantage match, they've got the advantage. So Punk is in there with Breaker. And I was thinking, I'm like, they need to have Brock come out. This match would be over before it started. All you have to do is murder Punk. And then when the match beyond begins, you pin his corpse. That's how you win this. So I'm thinking, I'm like, here comes Brock, but it was actually a better option. It was Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre came out after Braun Breaker. So it was CM Punk against Braun Breaker and Drew McIntyre for like 3 fucking full minutes. So that was kind of fun. Cody came out next. So it was the two world champions starting things off for the babyface team. So it was Punk, then Breaker, then Punk, then Drew, then Cody. Then we get Logan Paul, followed by Jimmy Uso, followed by Bronson Reed, followed by Jey Uso, and then the final two would be Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. So now, throughout the course of the match, what we're looking for here is your, dissension on the heel side or the babyface side, and specifically what's going on with Cody and Punk and Roman Reigns. And very early on, when Cody is in there, he catches CM Punk with an accidental elbow. So he kind of, because that's what happens when there's people fighting all over the place. Cody throws an elbow thinking it's a heel, but he bashes Punk in the face. So there you go. There's our first little tease. Punk comes up a little bloody, which was kind of cool. I'm not sure if it happened when he was getting his head raked across the cage or if it was the actual elbow from Cody that caused the blood, but you could tell he was bleeding. And if I had to guess, I would assume that Punk might have lobbied for that and be like, look, this is a War Games match. I got to bleed a little bit. You got to let me. And maybe they let him. There's a little bit, of tension there with Cody and CM Punk, but they get over it real quick. And that's one of the things that I've always said and complained about in matches, especially tag team matches or multi-man match affairs. Whenever there's an accidental shot, you accidentally get kicked or punched by your own teammate, they flip out. They act like it's so absurd that they got accidentally hit. I'm like, bro, you're in a wrestling match with a bunch of chaos. Accidents might happen. Strikeforce at WrestleMania 5. Martel eats a flying forearm from Tito accidentally. Gets pissed, turns into the model. Dusty Rhodes turned babyface because of much of the same thing. There was a tag match and he got hit by his partner and he fucking went nuts and the American Dream was born. And this trope that when you get accidentally hit by your partner, you have to break up the team and, and be mortal enemies now. It would be nice just for a change for two guys just to be adults about it and be like, oh, shit happens, my bad. Or, hey, be more careful. Or, hey, we'll discuss it in the back later on. And it was kind of cool to see Cody and Punk, who are, two of the more level-headed and more mature, I think, main eventers WWE has, have something like that happen. And then they're actually like, okay, cool. Yeah, my bad. It was an accident. Didn't mean to. Let's refocus. And they did. So much so that Cody and Punk refocused. What they hit? A heart attack on Breaker? And here's the spot right here as you can see here with the elbow. And Punk's bleeding. And they're just kind of talking it out, and they kind of, Cody gets shoved there by Punk, but that pretty much squashes it. From that point on, Cody and Punk are kind of on the same page, and I forget who they hit the heart attack on. I think it was Breaker, but they definitely hit the Doomsday on Breaker, so they hit the heart attack first. Oh no, heart attack on Drew right here. So Drew eats the heart attack, but then Braun Breaker, they execute a Doomsday device on him, and he does not land well. He lands right on his head, and that was really scary and really painful looking. Hopefully everything is okay with Braun Breaker there. We got to mention the Jey Uso entrance. Jey Uso had his entrance, by the way, but then when he's back in the ring and he makes his entrance, he's in there for a while. He does the encore, which again, in the crowd, everybody was popping for. So even though I thought him restarting his entrance was stupid, watching the wrestlers battling it out in the ring and, looking at the crowd all just yeeting and doing the entrance during the chaos, I did kind of like, even though I thought the idea of him restarting his entrance in a match this big and then climbing up to the cage and having sexual intercourse with the top of the cage or whatever he was doing up there, I don't think any of that was necessary. And then it cut off abruptly when Brock Lesnar came out. So we got usually countdowns, 10-second, 15-second countdown, whatever it was, in between the intervals. But when Jey Uso restarted his entrance here, as you can see, the Beast showed up, and that got a great pop. I thought that was actually kind of cool, the way they just had his music play in the middle of Jay's little encore there. So they turned a stupid situation into something a little bit better when Brock Lesnar came out and just shut that shit down. So Brock was in the ring. It's, my God, it's F5s, it's Germans, it's chair shots for everyone. You get a German, you get a German, you get an F5, you get a chair shot, you get an F5 too. I haven't forgot about you, Cody Rhodes. You're getting a German. I'm going to get a chair shot on you too. Don't you forget it. Don't you worry. I got you, bro. So Brock wasn't leaving anybody out. He came out there, murdered everybody, and that left one more participant left on the babyface side. And of course, it was going to be Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns is out last for the babyfaces, and now the match beyond can begin. Now, they added a new rule this year where they said something like, if you try to escape the cage or you leave the cage during the match, then your entire team loses. But that stipulation doesn't kick in until the match beyond begins. So when Roman Reigns comes out, as you can see him here, Brock Lesnar kind of steps out of the cage. Brock Lesnar gets out of the cage. Now, I wasn't aware of this rule. I didn't hear about this until today when I saw it on social media. So I didn't realize anything last night about this. But when Brock Lesnar gets out of the cage, he's allowed to do that because the match beyond hasn't started yet. So Brock gets out and he starts brawling with Roman Reigns right there in the aisleway. So they kick things off. And since Roman hadn't entered the cage yet and the match hadn't officially begun, there's a little loophole here where Brock can actually leave the cage legally without having his team lose. So that's kind of the way they started it off here. And more Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns teases. My God, that's one match we do not need for WrestleMania next year. They better not fucking do this again. And I really thought that SummerSlam match a few years ago was going to be the final battle between these two. And here they are going at it again, both heading up a couple of War Games teams, which I just don't need any more of these two. So Roman and Brock, they get into it. They finally get into the cage. But Roman and Breaker mix it up. So now you've got several possibilities for WrestleMania. And I feel like it's either going to be Cody and Punk, or Punk and Roman, or Roman and Breaker. And they didn't really give you any clear-cut telltale signs here of what exactly they're going to do, but you got a pretty good idea. And based on how this match went, I think I'm hoping that we're looking at Cody and Punk and Breaker and Roman is what I'm hoping they do, but that could still be very much up in the air. So now everybody's in the ring. Roman and Brock, they go at it. We get the tease with Roman Reigns and Braun Breaker, and Breaker eats a spear from Roman Reigns. You just saw Roman spearing Brock Lesnar and Jey Uso into that Slim Jim announce table. And then we get that masked man, which we just saw a second ago, right? Where's our masked man? Our masked man comes in. Yeah, this is him here. Masked man shows up, scales the cage extremely fast. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's Randy Orton, but the way he got up the cage so fast, it's not him. And he comes in and he delivers a curb stomp to CM Punk. And the fans were like, holy shit, it's Seth. But it's not Seth because he just had surgery. What's he going to fake an injury and purposely relinquish the title, just to come back for this spot? It's not Rollins. And he got out of the ring so quickly and they never revealed who the hooded man was. He just left. So after the stomp to Punk, that left Breaker all by himself. And then he takes his straps down, right? And he goes coast to coast a couple of times on the ropes and he saws CM Punk in half with a spear and pins him for the win. So Punk goes down. Punk eats the pin for the men. His wife gets the victory for the women. I really like that dynamic there. And I think having Braun Breaker be the one to score the pin on the world champion, that might be setting us up possibly for our WrestleMania. Now, I kind of see where they might be going with this based on that finish. Breaker getting the pin for his team, not Brock, not anybody else. It was Breaker. That was the right person to do it, and he pinned the right guy. He needed to pin one of the champions, and he pinned CM Punk, getting the win for the heels, and the heels are victorious. So that match is over. And we're like, okay, we're looking around. Okay, something's got to happen now. So we're sitting here watching as the heels celebrate. They all regroup. They go to the outside of the ring. You know, we get pyro going off for them and all this stuff. We're watching the replays on the Tron, and we're just sitting there like, okay, I'm thinking Survivor Series 2023 in Chicago. I'm just waiting for somebody's music to hit. We don't really know the status really of Chris Jericho's contract. What we've heard is that it's up at the end of the year after 2025, but we don't know that for sure. We don't know any specific dates. It's close enough to the end of the year. Maybe he's done now. We also heard reports that WWE has offered Chris a retirement storyline. So he's probably going to be coming back. I don't think he's going to be a surprise in the Royal Rumble because the Rumble is in Saudi and it's going to be tough to hide people. So maybe there's an outside chance that right when you think they're going off the air, they hit you with the Lee fitting and the Triple H and they hit you with the credits. We get Break the Walls Down or Judas or something. I'm still thinking something's going to happen, or maybe that dude in the mask is going to come back. Now, everybody around us in the in our section, they all knew it was Austin Theory because we had heard reports that Austin Theory was going to be brought into the Vision and probably be a part of War Games, but Seth Rollins' injury really goofed up their creative plans. So it's cool that they're still going to have Theory be a part of this, and he's probably going to be revealed as the Masked Man on Monday night. And we'll see how the Vision looks now if Theory is going to be involved there. But Theory was basically, or the Masked Man, who's definitely going to turn out to be Theory once we learn this. He was instrumental in the heels winning, curb stomping Punk, allowing Braun Breaker to saw him in half and get the win. And the show actually goes off the air, just as you see here with the heels celebrating and with Punk and Roman and Cody having a little bit of a conversation after the match. So after the match, I think the heels music even shuts off, and you see Roman in the ring there, sitting down, all dejected. Cody is in there. So is CM Punk. And Roman Reigns winds up getting up and helping. He helps CM Punk to his feet, reaches out his hand, picks him up, even gives him a little bit of a fist bump. So Cody and Roman essentially feel like they're okay. They're on solid enough ground. Roman and Cody, though, there's still a little bit of dissension there because Cody gets up and Roman, passes him and says something like, this is the last time they will ever team again. They'll never team with Cody Rhodes again. So Roman seems to be a little bit more okay with Punk than he does Cody, with the little help up there and the fist bump. So if Roman and Punk is going to be the match at WrestleMania, I don't really see that at this point based on their interaction after this match. Roman and Cody, I don't really want a third match. I do. I have no problem with Roman and Cody having a third match. I might have a problem with it main eventing a night 2 of WrestleMania. I don't want that. So what I've taken away from all of this here, based on what we saw, at least for WrestleMania, is that we had Braun Breaker spearing CM Punk to get the win. That, to me, tells me that Braun Breaker and CM Punk at WrestleMania is not going to be the plan because that's too far off. Braun Breaker just pinned the world champion. That should be enough, you would think, to get him a championship match without needing the Elimination Chamber or the Royal Rumble. So it might be shaking out exactly how one of the scenarios that I predicted was, how do we get to Cody versus CM Punk? Because when it comes to a night 2 main event, when you look at Cody, you look at Punk, you look at Roman, you look at Breaker, you look at Brock, those are pretty much the only guys right now I think that would be in any of those main events, maybe a Gunther. But when specifically you look at Cody and Punk and Roman and Breaker, I think the best way to set this up is Punk and Cody Rhodes. Punk and Cody Rhodes as the night 2 main event is the most intriguing match that they could do for me. I don't know how you guys feel. I don't know how other fans feel. But in terms of what I would like to see as the night 2 main event, I think Cody and Punk is the most intriguing. We've had them tease a match between the two. We even thought there could be some interesting dynamics in AEW when they were both there, because I'm not sure if the two were really on spectacular terms 5 years ago. But now they're both in WWE. They're both on top of the world. They're both happy. There's no reason to be enemies. So it's all flowers and rainbows and whatnot with the two of them. But I think a WrestleMania match for the championship could make a really interesting dynamic. It could have a Brett Shawn type of vibe to it, to where they really are occupying the same spot in the company. Who is the true best in the world, Cody or CM Punk? And if the two of them wrestled for Cody's title in the Night 2 main event, that's the match that I find the most intriguing. So here's how I would do it. Since Braun Breaker pinned CM Punk last night, I would book Breaker and Punk at the Rumble or somewhere. I don't think it's going to be Saturday night's main event. I mean, it could. But I would maybe book Punk and Breaker at the Rumble for the championship. And you have Breaker win it. My original pitch was Roman and Punk, with Roman beating Punk for the title and then dropping it to Braun Breaker. But now with Breaker getting that pin over Punk, Breaker's big moment might not come at WrestleMania or at SummerSlam. It might come in Saudi Arabia. Braun Breaker might win the title from CM Punk at the Royal Rumble, which means Punk won't be in the Rumble to win it. He'll have to win the Elimination Chamber in Chicago. So what I think they should do is have, I guess, like maybe Breaker beats Punk for the title and then defends against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania and beats him and retains the title. Maybe I would do that at WrestleMania, and then you have Cody staying champion all the way into WrestleMania, and you have CM Punk winning the Chamber in Chicago and going on to challenge Cody. The only problem with that is the Royal Rumble winner, in order for that scenario to work, the Royal Rumble winner, again, is going to have to challenge the World Heavyweight Champion. Kind of like how Jade challenged Gunther last year. In my scenario, Roman would have to want that. Roman would have to want the other belt when he held the one Cody has for like 4 years. So it might be weird to get there. But when you see what Breaker did, beating Punk, that tells me that maybe Breaker's got a title shot coming way before, because the order of the titles I thought it was going to go. I thought it was going to go Punk to Roman to Breaker. You have Punk and Roman. Roman beats Punk for the title, and then you book Roman and Breaker at SummerSlam. Kind of like how you had Brock and Rock at 02. You book that match the same way. You have Breaker just beat him. You just have him beat him fucking clean. Straight, squeaky clean, right there in the middle, and doesn't even really break much of a sweat to do it. That's how you put over Breaker. That's how you smash over Breaker. But that is 9 months from now. That might be too long. It might be too long. So maybe the plan is to do Breaker early. But for WrestleMania, the match that I want to see the most of all of these guys, and if I had to pick right now a Night 2 main event, it would be Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk for the championship, with probably Cody in the position of the champion and Punk the challenger. And I think Elimination Chamber, that is all set up for Punk, to win that there in Chicago. Unless he has a title defense instead and he's still champion going into that, I don't know. So lay it out for me. What do you think? How would you book the Rumble, the Chamber, and Mania? How would you book the Rumble and Chamber in order to get to the main event matches that you want to see at WrestleMania? And at least for the men. I mean, the women we can talk about another day. But the dynamic of your Breakers, your Romans, your Punks, and your Codys. I want to see Punk and Cody, and I think Roman and Breaker would also be a very acceptable match. Roman and Breaker for the championship on night 1, Cody and Punk for the championship on night 2. And there's a few different ways you can get to that destination. So that's kind of what I think they should do. And we will see. So they did set up a lot here, or at least began the setup of what we could see at WrestleMania, but I don't totally trust that Triple H even knows what his plans are going to be yet. You definitely know it's going to be a combination of Cody and Punk and Roman and Breaker. It feels like that's probably what they're going to do with Breaker getting the big win here, not only winning War Games match for his team, on the same team with guys like Brock Lesnar, mind you, and pinning the world champion to do it. That has got to elevate him a lot quicker than waiting until 10 months from now to belt him up. I mean, we got to hope that Punk even stays healthy through this championship run, much less go through Rumbles and Chambers and main event WrestleMania again. So we got to hope that old man Punk there stays healthy and he doesn't get hurt again. We don't know if we're going to have Seth Rollins back. Originally, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, I think, was the plan for WrestleMania. It's possible it could still be the plan if Seth can get back in time, but I don't think WWE really knows that yet. And it's going to be hard to have that on your docket or have that, that match set when you don't even know if it's going to happen. So you're going to, if I'm Roman, I would be telling Triple H, look, I love Seth. He's my brother, but I want to know what I'm doing at WrestleMania. I don't want to just play it by ear. I don't want to wait and see. I want to know what the fuck I'm doing. So put me in. So they might not be even trying to see if they can still salvage Roman and Seth. Might be too late for that. They're like, Seth might make it back for Mania, but if he does, we're just going to have to plug him in somewhere because we don't want to risk building something or having plans for something and then that falls through and then we're stuck with nothing for Roman to do. So I'm kind of ruling out Seth at this point, but I guess you don't really know yet if he'll be back. He might be, but he probably won't. So Cody and Punk, I think that's your money match. I think the promos, everything leading up to that will be a lot of fun. I think you can have some fun contract signings. You can see maybe some of their personal feelings and their true selves come out in some of these promos, and it depends on if you want to have one a heel, one a face, or if you want to have a babyface match with one of them turning heel, or if you want to do a double turn scenario or something like that. But if you do a double turn with two baby faces, does that mean they both turn heel? I think it does, right? That might be a first. Have we ever seen that? Have we ever seen a double turn where both wrestlers go into the match the same and leave the same? It's technically a double turn. They went in as baby faces, they both left as heels. How have we not done that? I mean, we might have. But have we done a match like that, or where two heels leave as two baby faces or anything like that? I mean, technically that would count as a double turn, right? I think. And that's how your Survivor Series ended, with the heels celebrating with fireworks going off. And the only surprise we got was Liv Morgan and a masked man who we know is Austin Theory. So I feel like we could have gotten more out of the Survivor Series, just a little bit more. That's all. Maybe an extra surprise here or there. Maybe doing something in these War Games matches that we haven't seen before. Give us something a little bit new, a little bit more creativity with your spots and shit like that. Because if you're going to do these matches every year, they're all starting to feel the same. And what's going to happen is you're going to start not being able to tell the difference between your 2022 and 2026 War Games matches because it's just all the same shit. Every year it's the same. So you don't want to get in the habit of War Games being that way because up until, or still currently, it's a match concept I really like, and I don't want to see it ruined or watered down or overdone or, reach the level that Hell in a Cell once reached. That they're slowly trying to rebuild the importance of that match concept and its legacy. I don't want to have to see War Games go through that similar type of rebuilding, So I feel like they could have done more last night, but it was what it was. We went to the show, and like I said, we had a great time. Again, I want to thank my boy Zach, who Elizabeth and I were thinking about staying at the Omni, which is connected to Petco. You get a sky bridge that takes you right into the park there. You don't have to wait in line or nothing. You can go right in. But after Elizabeth's injury, that kind of there was no chance of that. But we were able to walk back over through the hotel with Zach and use his hotel key card to get through there and go into the hotel lobby where we saw Nick Aldis hanging out and Big E was hanging out on the streets. And then after we left and jumped in our Uber, Zach, you sent me a DM. You said you went back down to the lobby to look for some food, and lo and behold, there was CM Punk hanging out with a bunch of fans getting mobbed. I saw the video of Paul Heyman shoving some dude. What a fucking fat walrus. What an asshole. What an asshole. He's such an asshole, isn't he? Just shoved some guy completely out of the way. Just a dick. So I didn't get to see as many wrestlers out and about last night as I would like, considering that all the wrestlers were staying at the hotel that was connected to the building. But as soon as we got to the show, we went right into the stadium there, and then we left. We jumped in an Uber and came home. So you guys have a great rest of your Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll be talking to you tomorrow. Peace.